So we are ready to the last part, adding chart to our application.
Right, so as usual, I have to gather my wits here a little bit. We're going to replace this container with a chart. So in the API docs, I already went to docs, web API reference as before, and I went to tracks. And inside of tracks, you'll see there are various feeds. And there's one interesting feed called audio features for a track. So if you have an ID of a track, you can make this call and it returns this data. So if you look down below, so if you look here, you can kind of see it on the right here. So these are kind of strange concepts. It's how acoustic the music is, how danceable the music is, how much energy it has, whatever that means. Let's see. Energetic tracks feel fast, loud, and noisy. Death metal has a high energy. Okay. And then how instrumental it is, how lively it is. So that's another kind of interesting concept. And then loudness, I guess we don't need that. Speechiness, I guess perhaps rap music would score high with that one. They have something called valence. Let me read the happy, cheerful, euphoric. Okay, I went valent music. All right, so that's it. So the point is we're going to make this call, and then we're going to show that in a radar chart. So let me show you what a radar chart looks like, or maybe I could just describe it. A radar chart, I guess when we looked at charts, when we went to kitchen sink, I can't remember.
Let's open it at kitchen sink. We didn't discuss it.
So let's go into charts, and then radar, here we go. And then basic radar maybe, or filled, sure. So the idea is you have categories around the outside, and then the rating goes radially from the inside.
Sounds like a good fit for our data.
Right. So what I need to do then is I need to create a store that initially has data, but they're empty. In other words, I want 0 values for all of these. And we'll need to reset it to 0 as the user clicks from track to track. We need to reinitialize the store. But when we do get data, then we'll create, populated data. So the first thing I need to do then is define the store and set it up with empty data. So
But before we need to define list of this like categories.
Right. So I figure the approach will be, let me see here. Here I am back in Album. I think one approach would be to say, let's create an array of the values that we're interested in. We'll then iterate over the array and populate the store with 0 values for each of those. And then when we actually fetch the data, we'll get the result. We'll iterate over our array again so we know which values to get out of the result, and we'll just use the actual values. So that's sort of the plan. So let me think here. So I need to code an array, I guess. So here, let me gather my wits. So I guess I'll just do it here somewhere.
Like categories array?
Sure, that's a good name. And I'm gonna...
I will read names of different categories for you. First, acousticness.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to go to the API docs and look these up because I don't know how to spell. I think these words are made up words. So okay, acousticness. First, okay, what else should we try?
Instrumentalness.
Okay, hold on here. This one. Okay, what's next?
Violence.
Valence, not violence.
Sorry.
That would be the opposite of happy. Okay, so there's valence. Okay, what's next?
Danceability.
There's danceability. I'll put that there.
Energy.
Energy, these are alphabetical, so it takes me a while to figure these things out. Okay, energy, then what?
Liveness.
Okay. And is that it? Any more?
No.
Okay.
That's it.
All right, so now I need a store to store these values. So what I'll do is just in the constructor, I'm just kind of proofreading my code here. So what I'll do is I'm going to code a property in our class which reflects these values but has 0 for everything. And then we'll use that when we create our initial empty store And we'll use it anytime we switch tracks and go to a new store. So let me do that here. So here, I'm going to say, okay, so this dot, and what's
NT audio features.
So this is that the name of our feed? Yeah, audio features, empty. And what I'll do is I'll just iterate over these. So I'll say
this dot categories map.
And then this will be one item and then an arrow function. And what I want to return is an object where, actually I'll call this category. So I'll return category.
And value.
And then value we'll set to 0.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that means this is suitable for a store, right? We're going to have a series of values, series of records, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 records, but every record will have a property called category, which will be this word, and then a property called value, which will have, that value of 0. Okay, so now let's create a store using that data. So if I come here, and what should we call this?
Audio feature store.
And I'll say new ext.data.store.
And as one parameter, you can send data for the store, right?
Right. So stores have a property called data. Normally that's filled when you fire off the proxy and fetch the data dynamically. But if you already have the data, you can populate a store using that data. And that's the data property. There's also a setter for that. So all I have to do...
And in this case, you do not need to define proxy, for example.
Right, because everything is done in memory. We're kind of calculating it here. Okay, so now our store is ready to go, and we could wire this up now to our polar chart. It won't show anything, but we can actually get the code for it. So now I'll go out to the API docs and go back to Radar, and they have a little snippet in here that I think, once again, will be suitable for just copying and pasting. So let me get this. Now, charts is a pretty huge topic. There's just so many different chart types and axes and things like that. It's a little hard to go into too much detail here, but I'll kind of give you a briefing on the code once I get it pasted here. So there's our audio tag, and the chart goes right there. And I want it to be, remember, I want it to be flex.
1.
Yeah. And I guess I don't, oh, that's, sorry, hold on.
Yeah.
It's in the wrong, there, that's where I need to be. Flex 1, and that's that. Okay, so now the store is wrong, of course. It's got to be our new audio feature store. Then, again, it's a very long story. There's various theming. There's like charts have predefined themes of colors, so they look kind of they look good in a chart. So when a chart is showing many different data points using different colors, the colors are kind of complementary. So they have a lot of predefined themes for that. So this happens to use this green theme. Sounds fine to me. I'll just use that. Series then, a chart shows a series of values from a store. So if you had a line chart, let's say, or a Cartesian chart, you could have multiple series. Now for us, we only have one, right? We're only showing that one column of values. So for us, we're saying the series here, it's a radar chart, and that's the only thing we're showing. So again, if this were Cartesian, we could have 3 line series within it. All right, so we've got a polar, so that's fine. Or I'm sorry, radar chart. The angle field
should be category.
Yeah, so that's kind of, the angle is the angle around the outside, right? It's a polar chart. So that one is category. And then radius, what did I call it? Value, thank you. Then this is just what the chart content looks like. This is what we got from the API docs. This is really just to illustrate, we don't need this. If we didn't use it, it would just default to something nice. But this does illustrate that we have a lot of control how we style it. So maybe we should make it, here, I'll make it
light blue for filling, so it will look good with other parts of application.
Okay, I'll do that. Oops, light blue.
And opacity 0.8.
Yeah, I'll make it a little bit less transparent.
Yeah, and
okay.
The rest is fine.
Okay, so I'll leave that alone.
Yeah.
So the other important part now is axes, right? So if you had a Cartesian chart, right, you could have an axis on the left, on the right, even on the top and on the bottom. For a polar chart, there's basically two. There's one axis which goes around the outside, and then there's one that radiates from the inside. So what we're going to say is categories mean I have separate, distinct categories, just like we defined up above, right? Like danceability and things like that. So we're saying the angular axis that goes around the outside is categorical, and we're using the field called
category.
Yeah, category. And then radial, which means it's like the radius, it goes from the inside. So radial is value.
And we can set a min and max value for this axis because we know that minimum value will be 0 and maximum will be 1,
So,
like from documentation of Spotify.
So I'm going to put that here. So what is it? Min value?
Minimum.
Minimum 0. Max. What is it? 0.1? Is it go from 0 to 1?
No,
or
maximum
just
1. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Duh. Okay, let me think. Just gathering my wits. I guess that's good. All right, so let me save, and we're not going to see anything yet, you know, because we don't have all the values are 0, but I want to just make sure at least I didn't break anything. So I'll log in again. And we do have a runtime error, so let's see what I did wrong here.
Polar, you need to include polar chart.
Yeah, okay, so that makes sense. So this is similar to that renderer. The charts code is in a separate code package entirely. And that's just to keep the amount of code inside of ExtReact kind of to a minimum unless you need some other special feature. So the point is we have to explicitly include this. And we did something similar before. I have to go into Webpack config. This is where we add packages, and I have to add one more called charts. And then I guess normally I would npm install this too.
But I believe it's installed. Let's check it into package.json file.
Yeah, we can look in package. I was going to go to node modules, which would be one way to find out, but it's probably a lot more efficient just to go to package.json.
Yeah, charts is here.
Right there. All right. So
and did you import polar chart from a package?
Probably not, because I never import anything. So let's do that too. No, of course I didn't do it.
You need to import it from Ext.Chart.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you're here to tell me these things. All right, import polar. Whoops. Sorry. There we go. All right, so I suspect what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop this and rerun it. Since we
made the changes into Webpack.
Right, we added Webpack itself, so I think that probably has to be re-evaluated. So we'll let this thing launch, and then hopefully it won't bomb, but we won't see any data yet. So the plan is we now need to make that call to fetch that data. Actually, I could work on that for a minute here while this thing is relaunching. Well, maybe it's already done. Hold on. Open up the debugger, click here.
Yeah.
Hey, awesome. And notice I added, inside of that copy and paste code, they added the ability to rotate this. Again, that's just an extra plugin you can do with charting in general. Okay, so now we need to actually populate this with data. So let's go back to the code here. And we need to do this when somebody selects an item inside of here. So here I need to run some method. So let me think, what would be a good name for this method?
Let me think.
So hold on here, I'm going to code. How about just populate, what is it called? Audio
Fetch audio features.
Audio features, like that.
Yeah.
And then we're going to have to pass in, so to fetch this, right, when we call that URL, we have to include the track number or the track ID. So that's the parameter that I'm expecting. And then we'll add this code later, and I need to call it from here. So I need to say this.fetch audio features, and then I have to pass in record.data.id. Okay, thanks. Record.data.id. Okay, so now inside of here, Now we need to make a call to fetch that data. So this isn't a great use case for actually using a store because we're just fetching like one track's worth of information, right? So we just want to make a direct Ajax call ourselves. Then we'll use that and our mapping that we used before to then populate the store based on all those categories we set up before. So we just need to make just a regular old Ajax call. So for that I need to go back to the docs. Let's look up Ajax. And we've been in this documentation a few times already. So what we can do is I can say, let's re-indent that. This says, I wish to make an Ajax request to a specified URL that I'll have to look up in a minute here. And then when I get a success response, we're going to do something. Now in our case, we're going to decode the value. So when you make an Ajax call, it's just character data. It's JSON, but it's character data. So what we have to do is decode that and turn that back into an object.
We can use a JSON parse function for that.
That's right. This is exactly the same as JSON parse. It's just sort of ExtReact's version of that. So inside of here, this is where I need to update that store. And I also need to change this URL. So let me head back out to the
Spotify API.
Right. So I need this thing. I'll copy that.
And you need to add a track ID.
So I'll do this, and instead of just ID here, ours is called
Track ID.
Track ID. Okay, so I'm kind of proofreading here.
And you do not need error handler for now.
Yeah, we're optimistic programmers, right? We know that there will never be a problem. So yeah, we don't care about that. So, actually this should run. If I select a track, at least we should see network traffic for getting this audio analysis. So let me try that out. When I code, I like to do things in small little steps. And actually, why aren't I seeing anything? Am I in the wrong window? I think I was running the wrong. Remember, I had to restart the server, so it launched it over here. All right, so let's select something and then click. Notice that it
shows object.
Did we?
Yeah, you do console.
Oh, we did a console log, and we should see network traffic. There it is. That's what I was looking for. So there's the call to audio analysis, passing in that track ID. If we scroll down here, there we go. Liveliness, loudness, etc. Okay, that's making me feel optimistic. Now we just have to update the store with this data. So now I have to go into here, and then let me think about it. I need a property called...
Yeah, you can first fill your categories array with new values, map it.
I think let me go up here and kind of...
Yeah.
I'll use this as sort of a starting point and then modify it. I'm big into copy and pasting. Okay, so I'm going to say const data, and then this is wrong now, right?
Yeah.
So I got to think this through.
Category is fine, but you need to do value from response. You could rename your object to response for better naming.
Okay.
And instead of 0, you could place response and subtract category.
Okay, like here. Yeah. Right. So remember in the data feed, it's just name value pair. It's category : something, like danceability : something or other. So when we say response.category, this is just the value for whatever that category is, whether it's how acoustic it is or whatever. So we're basically saying create an object where category is set to liveliness or whatever, and then the value will be whatever the value was for liveliness.
And we need to assign this data to our store.
So now all I have to do is say this.audiofeaturesstore.setData. So remember,
it's a way to set data when you do not perform do not call load method on your store.
Yeah, this situation isn't too unusual. Sometimes you need to pre-process data. Sometimes you have to make your own Ajax call, or you have to massage the data sometimes. So sometimes you'll kind of make your own call, massage the data, then you'll populate the store. It's sort of like what we're doing here. Okay, so let me think. Am I forgetting anything?
No,
we
it's
can
fine.
just try it. I'm always afraid to try it. Like, hey, I had to have made a mistake. Actually, it's a little strange that it didn't refresh here. Actually, that seems suspicious. So I must have an error. Errors while compiling. Const. Oh yeah, I made it a const, but it's actually passed as a parameter. So that was a bad name on my part. So let's go to this. Where am I here? Response. I'm just kind of reading here. I'll just call it RESP. And then I'm reading.
Yeah.
Map, and then we're mapping categories. Thanks. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, no errors this time. Now we still have an error. So it cannot read property map of undefined, line 66. So here, this. So this is this has to have the array in it actually. So in our response, where is the array? No, hold on. I'm just kind of thinking to myself.
You need to send a scope. You need to send a scope.
I didn't make it an arrow function. That's why. I made it a regular function.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try that one more time. So as you guys know, right, this won't work right in this situation if you use a regular old function. So let's try it again. And I'm going to mute this actually. Not that I don't like music, but hey, there we go.
And now we need to clean this array when we close the dialog. So on dialog hide event, we need not only stop playing the music, but also clean clean our store and assign this empty audio features
right. And we can see that here because I've opened up another album and I still see the data from the previous call. So yeah, we need to clean that up. So that means I need to reference
on height. Yeah, this
here.
one.
So there we go. So inside of here, I need to say this dot audio feature store dot set data, and then I'll use that set of empty data on the way out. All right, let's try it one more time. I'd like to get an album that has a lot more music though. And is this thing refreshing? Hold on. There we go. All right, so then as we click around, you'll notice that that's kind of morphing into the different characteristics, right, of these different songs. So apparently these guys are very acoustic, right? Every song is relatively high in acoustics as opposed to instrumental, you know, etc.
And for last thing that I would suggest to do is to add some padding to see the whole name category names. And there is one additional parameter on the chart that we forgot to set, is inset padding.
And does that go inside the polar?
Yeah, inside of the polar.
And what should I set that to, do you think?
20.
Okay. All right, so these guys are a good choice. They have a lot of songs.
Yeah, now it looks much better.
All right, great.
Yeah.
All right, well, that wraps it up.
Good job.